Welcome to Crystal B Talks. Today I'm joined by Maxine Clark, visionary founder of Build-A-Bear Workshop, to discuss leadership, innovation, and building a global brand that inspires generations. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crystal B Talks. I'm your host, Crystal Bradley, and today we have a very special guest. She's the former CEO and founder of Build-A-Bear. Hi Maxine.
Good morning.
Nice. Thank you so much for being here today.
Glad to.
Awesome. So, in the beginning, can you walk me through the entrepreneur mindset of when you wanted to start a business?
So I think I've always been an entrepreneur, even as a child. I sold Girl Scout cookies. I was, a class leader. And leaders and entrepreneurs are often, equated together. But I didn't know that. I mean, that wasn't what I called myself. But I was always working on projects that were getting us more business in the retail business. I was in the retail business for 25 years before I started Build-A-Bear. And, but it came to me, I had retired from my job as the CEO of Payless Shoe Source. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do something different, mostly for kids. I didn't know what it was going to be when I left. I just knew I had to change and get back my kid think. Mm-hmm. And so I came back home to St. Louis and I picked up my next door neighbor kids from school, and they wanted to go to the store to buy Beanie Babies because those were really popular. Mm-hmm. And we went into the store that had a sign in the window that said, "We have Beanie Babies," but they were out of them because all day long parents kind of trolled the stores to buy them for the kids, and they took the discovery away. Okay. So Katie, who was 10, she said, "These are easy. We could make these." And the light bulb went off in my head, and I said, I knew we could do this. But she thought we were going to go downstairs to my craft room at my house and make a craft project, which they did. They came in, they ran downstairs, got out all the stuff. And I went to the computer and started Netscaping because it was 1996, and that's all you could do then. And I was looking for if I could buy a business that was in making stuffed animals in America, mm-hmm. and convert it, turn it around and make it reverse the operation so that the customer would be making the stuffed animal, and then instead of the factory making the stuffed animal. But we came up with a combination idea, as you know, at Build-A-Bear. Mm-hmm. So that day, the idea for Build-A-Bear was born from the idea of a frustration, actually, of a 10-year-old. Mm-hmm. And a lot of good ideas come from somebody who's missing something, whether there's something missing in the healthcare system, or there's something missing in a product, or they don't make clothes big enough or small enough, or shoes that are comfortable enough, so people invent those products around those needs of the consumer. And when it fills a need or solves a problem, then it's usually successful. When it's just meant to be, I want to make myself rich, and I just have this idea, and you've never put it in front of the customer, you don't know if it'll solve a problem, mm-hmm. It's less likely to be successful.
And that's how a lot of businesses feel too, because people just want to get rich fast. That's a good point. I do have another question. So I remember you wanted to be an attorney at one point. So where the correlation from being an attorney to now just going for entrepreneur?
That's a good story too. I mean, I have a lot of stories. I've lived a long, wonderful life. But growing up, I wanted to do anything that a woman didn't do in the 50s, 60s, 70s in my time period. So one of those was to be a lawyer. There weren't many women lawyers. I loved debating. I was a debater in high school. I loved debating. I loved arguing with my parents about things, and good things. My parents were very engaged in the community, and so we talked about a lot of issues that existed in the 60s when I was growing up. And so I went to college. I graduated from the University of Georgia, which is where I learned to be a bulldog, because we're the Georgia Bulldogs. And went off to Washington, D.C. to go to law school, and I had to get a job to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And I got a great job working in retail. One of my college professors said, "You'd be really great at retail. Why don't you, get a job in one of the executive training programs?" So I did that. And my boss, I was going to school at night, taking a few classes, getting started. And my boss got sick. And so his boss asked if I could fill in for him, do this, I'm being sarcastic now, this terrible thing of going to Europe, going to New York, traveling, because it was a fashion business. We were in the apparel business. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, I could do that. And I had no idea what that meant, but I didn't even have a passport. So I had to get a passport really quick and got to work. And at the Times, this was 1971 or 2, around there, there were no clothes for women who were working. It was all sort of very masculine, like suits and bow ties and things that, made women look more like men than women. And was this the time that women was trying to go into the workforce? Yes.
Okay.
Early 70s. And so I sort of just as a woman who was in the workforce, and a small woman, like I could hardly buy anything because everything that was made for small people was basically made for children. So I really sort of invented I didn't design the clothes. The manufacturers knew how to do that. And I told them what I thought the customer wanted. And we were really successful. And when my boss came back at the end of the year, about 9 months later, he got the biggest bonus he'd ever gotten because we were so successful. And he shared it with me, and I wasn't bonus eligible. So that taught me something too, that people do care that you participate with them. That I didn't save his job, but I certainly helped him. And I got the attention of the CEO of the May department stores, which was located here in St. Louis, Missouri. And he called me on the phone, David Farrell, and he came to visit me in St. Louis, in Washington, D.C. He wanted to talk to me about it. How did a college kid know how to change the business? And he agreed, because he was a very customer-focused person. So I told him, I said, I went and talked to customers. I was a customer. I watched what people bought. I watched what department they went to from when they left my department. Did they go to the shoe department? Did they go to the handbag department? Did they go to the hosiery department? Where did they go? What else did they buy? And because I'm very curious. And it worked. And he asked me to come to St. Louis, and I didn't even know where St. Louis was. I had to go back and look it on the map. And I thought I'd be here for a few years, and here I am. Over 50 years later,
Oh, I love that. What are some of the quality traits a person should have if they wanted to start their own business?
Well, I think you do need a plan. I brought you my Build-A-Bear plan so you can see it. But my successor, Sharon Price John, who's a wonderful friend of mine, I gave her a copy, and so she had a copy made and bound for me. So I would always have a copy, which I did have one anyway, but I didn't have a bound one. Because I really believe that the first person you have to convince is yourself. And so I wrote this business plan, a 10-year business plan for me, for the business, of course. But so are you going to dedicate 10 years of your life to this business? Are you going to hire people and make sure that they're successful? Are you going to be able to have the financing to make this happen? And if you're not convinced, you can't convince anybody else, because in any business, but in retail in particular, you have to convince the landlords, you have to convince the suppliers, you have to convince the accounting firms that they're going to do. And honestly, it was 1996 by then, but still people were not sure women could do this. I mean, in St. Louis, it was very unusual for a woman to have her own business. Yes, they might have their own small business, but this was going to be a big business. I wasn't doing this for small. This business plan had $1 billion in it, plan for $1 billion. And so I wanted to do something that was going to change the lives of children and also change retail. And it's done both. And in ways I could never have imagined.
Good. So someone that's, want to tell somebody what to do or how to do it, they have to have it in them. They have to believe first that they can do it first. And
yes, you don't have to have every detail figured out. I mean, I had a lot of experience, so I knew what the details were, but a lot of people don't. Sometimes it's good not to have everything figured out because you have to be flexible. As things happen to you, you have to act. But I think you have to know that this is what you want to do, that you're willing to make the sacrifice necessary, and that you are willing to bring in the people that you need to help you, because you can't know how to do everything. I'm not an accountant. I know where good real estate is, but I'm not a person who's ever at that point negotiated real estate. I've done it now, but I had to hire somebody to help me do that. So you have to know what's talent and what's people giving you a story, about what they think they can do, but then they may not be able to do it. And when you're starting a business, it's got to be successful because you've got a lot of people depending on you. So it's one thing when you're later in the game and you might hire a person or two that's green and they don't get started as fast in their job. But when there's just a few of you, everybody has to kind of know what they're doing. But lucky me, I've worked in the May Company for such a long time, and St. Louis was a headquarters for Venture Stores and Famous Bar and May department stores in general. So there were a lot of people here that wanted to come to work at Build-A-Bear, wanted to do something different.
I love that. And you immerse yourself based on like job experience and just being around other smart, like-minded people.
Yes, I think I'm a very curious person. So I see opportunity everywhere. I don't know that I've ever seen something that couldn't be better than it was at the present time. That doesn't mean I have to do it. I share a lot of ideas with others who I think would be more qualified to do that, and they may not have seen it. A lot, especially today, people are walking down the street and they have their earbuds in and they're not paying attention to anybody else. And I walk here and I sometimes say, hi, and people don't even hear me because they're walking, they're talking on their phone and through their earbuds, and they're missing what's opportunity that's out there. And I don't want to miss anything. I've always been like that as a child. I was always really curious. I loved to read. I was in the library. I would ask my mom, I was doing a school project, and I asked my mom, what's the answer? And she'd say, I don't know. I already went to school. You look it up in the World Book. And the World Book was my Google of the time. I'd open up the book and I'd go looking, and I'd pick it up and I'd start reading it cover to cover, because there were so many things in there as an encyclopedia that I didn't know. I was just a child. So I still don't know them all. And that's a good thing. There's always new things to learn. And so that really is what fuels me.
From your experience, what makes a good leader in running a company or just having a small company with a few employees? What makes a good leader?
Well, you have to know what your business is and what the business, because you're going to have to explain it to people, and what your vision for your business is. You have to hire talent, good talent. Talent is people are everything. You cannot do it alone. And you have to stay up with what the times are, because Build-A-Bear is almost 30 years old. And some of the products that were popular 30 years ago are still popular, but there's lots of new ones. But if you're just saying we're only going to have these 12 products and we're going to have these forever, you will not make it. You've got to keep up with the times, whether you're in technology or you're in media or you're in retail, medicine. We have to all keep moving forward. And so that takes curiosity. The leader has to be curious. The leader has to be willing to learn from others also, because if you're busy at meetings all the time, you're missing out on, so you have to listen to what people tell you is going on. I say, show me, take me out there. Show me what you're talking about. And that is a style that I've always had, because my natural nosiness and curiosity has played well in the retail business, but it's played well in my life because it's allowed me to have friends from so many different backgrounds. And, there's always something to learn. I feel 40 years younger than I am because I'm always learning. And, that sometimes we get to a stage in our life where we stop learning. And that's what really, I think.
So we get both in learning,
yeah. This word I'm going to use is not right. Like I said, it kills us when you stop learning. It does it. It deteriorates your brain, and you really do need, there's so much newness going on. I'm an AI person. I love using AI. I am using it to help me think faster on some subjects that I want to work on, some projects that I want to work on. And, some people haven't even figured out how to use a computer that at my age. So I would say that to me, it's not about age. It's about how your brain works and what do you want to know and how do you want to serve the world. And I didn't retire from Build-A-Bear. I rewired myself.
I like that word. Okay.
And also it was at a very important time in St. Louis's story of Michael Brown. I retired in the end of 2013, and in 2014 Michael Brown was killed. And we were starting on our family foundation work, and I went over to Ferguson the next day and sat there on the hill with the kids. And I know they wondered, what is this old lady, sitting here? Why is she here? But they weren't rude to me or anything. They just let me sit there. And when I heard them talking about something that I thought I needed to understand better, I asked. And they gave us the idea, actually, for one of our programs that we have called blueprint4.com, which is our summer camp directory that we have, because a lot of these kids didn't even know there were summer camps 2 miles away from their, summer programs that they could engage in, high school students and younger children. And I realized that my friends all know about them because they have the time and the money to invest. So we went, and the first year we only had 3,000 summer camps, and we provided a few scholarships. But the next year we had almost 10,000, and we provided $100,000 worth of scholarships to kids. And now we still have somewhere between 10 and 12,000. It's a pretty constant number, but we get more and more kids every year who are more aware. Parents who know, and they come back every year. They call us and say, when are the listings going to be up? And that's all. We don't even advertise it in West County. It's only advertised in the city in North County and in the city of St. Louis. We tell people about it. People know about it, but it's not, we don't spend our money there because we know there's still people in the city and North County that need to know this information. And we also help direct those camps every year at our camp summit that's coming up in a few weeks. We give the camps information. Who is looking for a camp that you have in this zip code and you didn't have one there? So that they can think next year in their planning that it's time to put a camp in that zip code. So we've been able to move a lot of summer camp programs, day camp, they're all day camps, to areas where there was a void to help families have access. And the scholarships help a lot because camp is about It could be. There are many free ones, but they can average about $250 a week. And if you have multiple children, that's really expensive, and it's 10 weeks of summer. So we really try to promote the ones that are really affordable and free, and also the ones that are science and math and construction, and are preparing kids for their futures, giving them the ideas of what they might want to be when they're grown up.
Wow, I love that. And then as you see like business and technology and how retail have been constantly evolving over the years, and you stated that you use ChatGPT or AI, where do you see retail or just business going in the next 5 or 10 years?
I think there's lots of complications in all of that, and clearly it has to be for good. You cannot do it to cheat people, or you shouldn't do it to cheat people or to share their information, their personal information. What I'm doing is trying to get to. I'll ask a lot of questions about an idea I have that. And is there anybody else in America doing this idea? And if they are, could you share that? Tell me where it is and where I should look for it. If I'm asking them to help me with a financial plan, what do they think is a reasonable, based on other companies who have done X, Y, or Z? What's a reasonable business objective for 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out? My husband last fall had a stroke, and he was coming home, and I asked the social worker at the rehab center, what do I need for my house? And she said, well, I don't know what you have. And I said, well, trust me, I've never had an invalid in my house. I don't have anything. And she said, well, I said, do you have a list? And she says, no, we don't have that. So I went home and I went on Perplexity with a friend who told me about it. And she said, why don't you go on Perplexity and use it? And I said, good idea. So I went home, got on the computer, told them where I lived, what my zip code was, where I shopped, Costco, Walgreens, Walmart, and what his diagnosis was. And there I got pictures, a list, cost, how much Costco had in stock, how much Walmart had in stock. It was pretty amazing. Now, I don't know how accurate that part was, but they all had what I wanted and what I needed. And now I had my list. And I could, some of the things are disposable things that you need, like rubber gloves and things like that. But other things are equipment that you need. I had none of it. And most people wouldn't even be able to afford what those things are. That's a whole other story. So it's made me understand what's really missing in our healthcare system. You have to I always try to say, why did this happen to my husband? I think it happened, in some ways, God just gives you nothing that you can't solve, but it did give me a reason to understand. And now I'm working on that. How do we get more care to people and get this information to people who otherwise wouldn't know it and don't have the resources that I have? Couldn't go online to Perplexity or wouldn't even know what Perplexity was. So how do we make these tools available to the social workers at the healthcare center so that they can type in the information for the customer and poof, they have the information and they've given something to the customer that's really valuable. Yeah. I mean, you're going home and you're scared to death, and your spouse or caregiver is really scared. And mostly they don't give you enough time to get that all figured out when they tell you that you're going to leave. And the time you have to leave is very fast. So there's a lot there. But I have loved learning about the business of healthcare, which is consumer driven also. But people don't necessarily talk to the consumer as much as they should because they're trying to cure you and they think that's what you want the most. Of course it is what you want the most. But there are other things that make you a human being here and that you need to be talked to like you're an intelligent person. And people have to give you a little bit of time to pull it together. And so luckily I could do that. And I learned a lot, and I'm sharing that. I'm trying to figure out the whole way to share it in an intelligent way, but we're doing that. And we had this tornado. I call it a torpedo sometimes here in St. Louis. And I've been working on a couple of projects that I worked on with ChatGPT to come up with a strategy. And we'll be putting those out in play pretty soon. And so it just gets you there a little faster, and it's all about the questions you ask. So I'm a good question asker because I'm so curious. I ask a million questions. So if you're asking the right questions, you're going to get good answers. I'm not asking it to tell me whose house I can go and steal their information from. I'm not asking about any personal information. I'm really asking about where else are they doing this? Because other cities are doing things that we're not doing in St. Louis that maybe could be helpful to us. And an expert is sometimes somebody from out of town or out of the company. So why not go look for the experts and learn from them? So it's also fun. For me, it's continuing learning. And when you continue to learn, you grow and you prosper. And I'm not ready to go anywhere at this point. I'm a pretty healthy person. And I want to live to at least 100 because I think it's going to take that long to get some of the stuff done I want to get done for St. Louis. But I'll hopefully be healthy all the way to the last minute and then just go to sleep and be on to the next land. But I hope that's far away. But, in reality, we all have a limit and we don't know exactly when that is. That's up to God. And I am trying to push him to see I can do more, let me be here a little bit longer.
Yeah, you seem very motivated and ambitious. And to end off, I do have one more question. What is your best advice to young entrepreneurs that are trying to start their own company?
Well, first of all, I always advise get experience in that business because you can learn a lot from your bosses, and even the good bosses, yes, and the bad bosses too. What to do and what not to do. And so, if you want to own a restaurant, go work in a restaurant and go to the best one you can get a job in and see how they do it. Not necessarily, if you want to run a really quality restaurant, you might not go to work at McDonald's, but you could learn a lot at McDonald's about operations and logistics because it's amazing what they do. But in a fine restaurant, how do they look at the customer? How do they see their customer experience? How do they teach the people about that? Who are their suppliers? Where do they buy their furniture? And honestly, business owners want you to ask questions and they want you to be engaged. They're not thinking, he's going to go open another business. But for me as an owner of my business, I was so thrilled when other people left to go start their own businesses. It was an honor. It's not a negative. I wish they would stay and work for me, but the idea that they're going to go and make themselves more prosperous and help others be prosperous, that's the American dream. And I like that dream. So I've never been against that. I think that's when I created Build-A-Bear and could pay people what I thought they deserved and all of the things that I wanted to do, insurance and benefits. I wanted that to be for them so they could live the best life they wanted. How could they, if they wanted a boat, have a boat. If they wanted to have a second home, if their children go to college, whatever it is, that we would be able to be part of that solution for them, a strong and steady job that paid well and rewarded you for your hard work and your effort for the company. And I think we've done that. And I think that Build-A-Bear continues to do that. One other thing that I would say that's important, and I'm lucky enough to have experienced this, is the next to being the founder of your company and creating a great company and hiring good people and paying them fairly is who do you hire to succeed you? And if your company just dies when you leave, then you've lost the jobs of all those people that worked hard for you. And I have a phenomenal successor in Sharon Price John. She's done a great job and all of her team. And Build-A-Bear is thriving now, almost 30 years old. And so that's not an easy task. And that takes a lot of people with a lot of opinions, a lot of, there's good days and bad days in there. There's tough business climates and good business climates. But you have to make the most of both sides of that coin. Yep. And you need a person who can navigate all that and lead people and love people as well as I did is really important. And we aren't the same person, although we had a lot of similar experiences in our career prior to Build-A-Bear. We actually go about it in sort of a different way. And I've learned a lot from her and she's learned a lot from me. And together Build-A-Bear is a much better company because of that relationship that we have and her talent and skills.
Good. Well, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
being here. This was a wonderful conversation. I know we can go on and on talking more. But thanks everybody that's watching. And if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.